If you've watched a movie or a show or played a video game where magic plays a pivotal role, you've no doubt subconsciously categorized magic users into gods in robes, special exceptions to nature, and nerds with flash pops and lasers. And if you're anything like me, you might have caught yourself wondering at some point why that should be so. After all, you'd think a guy who can telekinetically throw lightning bolts at people whilst flying around the sun at Mach 4000 should be an elementary breeze to get right. But if you've thought that, you've obviously never tried to integrate one into an intelligible narrative before. So let me explain. The first and most obvious problem we face when trying to design and implement a wizard into any form of fictional media structure is power creep. Since magic, by its very definition, exists as an exception to the normal rules of the universe, we, that is, creators, authors, game developers, and so forth, tend to face an overwhelming temptation to reduce it to an automatic win button for the characters or a convenient trump card for ourselves when we drive our story into a corner. So how do we avoid turning our imaginative omni-tool into a plot-convenient sledgehammer? Well, rather than have magic be an enigmatic, omnipotent force, we can overstep the whole issue altogether by simply inventing a parallel rule set for the magic. And for once, I don't need to explain to you how to do this, as a real creative writing genius by the name of Brandon Sanderson has already gone and done the legwork on that front for me. Now I could simply refer you to his YouTube lecture series on writing, which I do recommend on its own merit if you're at all interested in the subject. But instead, I'll just lay out for you the 3 Sanderson rules for magic systems. 1. The better the reader understands the magic system, the more it can be used to resolve conflict. 2. Limitations are more important and interesting than powers. 3. Expand what you already have before you add something new. And because Sanderson's apparently a fan of Isaac Asimov, he went and added a 0th law that states, when in doubt, always err on the side of awesome. Well, that all seems fairly well and settled, you might reasonably be thinking at this point. Unfortunately, that's just the narrative side of the coin. Game designers have an additional set of problems because, unlike the purely imaginary world of a book or a movie, a game's rules have to be literally spelled out in advance on Toto, where an author can get away with, and in actual fact, is generally better served to leave the greater portion of their world's lore and mechanics up to the whims of the audience's imagination. Every aspect of a virtual world must be not only explicitly described, but quantified in every detail in order to provide the intended experience. This is what makes role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons so hard to port over to cyberspace. The fact that their rules are less like the hard and fast tracks under a train and more like the crash barriers around a racing track. Sure, if you go beyond them, the likelihood of you continuing to enjoy yourself decreases, but in the latter's case, you're afforded at least a modicum of wiggle room before you're fated to have a fiery finish. The second, slightly less obvious, though by no means the lesser, problem for a modern wizard is novelty, or more actually, a distinct lack thereof. Now really think about that for a moment. What are a wizard's standard powers? The fact that this question even has a clear answer is the point. Again, by definition, magic is supposed to defy the ordinarily possible. A wizard's powers should be utterly anathema to ordinary mortal comprehension, not a collection of glow-in-the-dark Batman gadgets. And this is what I believe truly launched Brandon Sanderson's star into the inky heavens. His hitherto unrivaled ability, at least in my mind, to conjure meaningfully unique and varied magic systems to flavor his worlds with. Of course, I'm also not blind to the technical limitations of the favorite mediums of our days. Special effects budgets and game balance are major factors at the forefront of the minds of any competent director or developer, and I don't hold that against them. However, that still does not detract from just how sick to death I am of watching every other character start chucking glow sticks and firecrackers across the screen. All right, now it's all fine and good to yammer on about a problem, but what's the solution? That is, how can we incorporate magic into our fictional worlds without it being either reduced to a trivial light show or so utterly overpowered as to destroy any notion or even pretense of challenge or narrative tension? Well, as far as games go, perhaps a game engine with integral AI could generate outcomes of character-given prompts, in effect simulating a real human GM. Of course, I'm not a programmer or a game developer, so I may very well be talking out my ass here. But on the purely fictional front, speaking about movies and television in specific, I think the West could learn a thing or 2, or 10, from some anime like Overlord, or from the Star Wars expanded universe. For the former, it's basically the classic D&D model of RPG magic, as both the anime and light novel series origins were in their writer's love for Dungeons and Dragons.
I am the great Ainzul Gon. This sacred name can never be tarnished by defeat. Body of effulgent beryl. As I suspected. Unless I pull aggro with an actual attack, you won't go into combat mode, will you? Just like any MMO boss fight. Sorry, Shaltir, but I'm taking full advantage of this. You'll have to wait a little longer. Fly! Blessing of Magic Caster. Infinity Wall. Magic Ward Holy. Life Essence. Greater full potential. Freedom. False data life. See-through. Paranormal intuition. Greater resistance. Mantle of Chaos. Indomitability. Sensor boost. Greater luck. Magic boost. Draconic power. Greater hardening. Heavenly aura. Absorption. Penetrate up. Greater magic shield. Mana essence. Triple maximize magic. Explode mind. Triple magic. Greater magic seal. Triple maximize boosted magic. Magic arrow. Let's begin.
What's that? I think it's maybe super tier magic. That's supposed to be even stronger than 10th tier.
Isn't it a little early for that?
It's more like a skill. It doesn't use any MP.
It may be free to cast, but once it's used, he won't be able to cast it again. A bold tactic, to say the least.
What is his plan? Perhaps he wants to diminish Shaltir's HP quickly so she won't have time to counter him.
Still no enemies. Interesting. They could be hiding in wait for me, but I can't waste this opportunity to attack.
And for the latter, I'll refer you to a pair of quotes from the classic EU lore books, The Jedi Path and the Book of Sith, in that order, though slightly abridged for the sake of conciseness. To quote, "We Jedi are blessed with the gift of swimming in the Force in our every moment, breathing it, tasting it, riding its currents to our unique destinies. For the Jedi, the universe is never cold and directionless. The Force gives us purpose and compels us to share our gifts with others. The Force is bigger than all of us, but expresses itself in two aspects. The living force is raw and close at hand. It is the life energy tingling around you when you pass among plants and animals in a walk through a jungle, while the unifying force is a vast cosmic power. It is the stars and galaxies, the rippling surface of space and time. It is this voice that whispers of your destiny, and make no mistake, the force does have a will. To commune with the unifying force is to leave your body behind, allowing you to walk in the past or see the future. Some of the ancients believe it is even possible to transcend death. And now for the opposite side of the coin. Quote, "The Force is not fire. It cannot be passed from one user's lit torch to another's and another's until an entire hemisphere is illuminated with a blaze of 1,000,000 lights. When all carry a flame, no matter how dim and guttering it may be, they soon conclude that they are the brightest stars around which all others must orbit. Infighting follows, and Jedi victory becomes inevitable. No, the Force is venom. If it is poured into too many cups, it loses its potency until it becomes so diluted it is merely an irritant. Yet pour those cups back into a single vessel, and you will have the power to stop a great dragon's heart. This is the secret. This is the rule of two. One Sith must contain all the power of the dark side. One master must decide how that power shall be used. Sharing power is an act of weakness and a violation of the Sith code. Yet, the Sith order must survive after the master perishes. For this reason, the master must take an apprentice. The master instructs the pupil, but never gives up the smallest sliver of power. The apprentice learns through years of study, but must struggle for every achievement. If the apprentice becomes strong enough, a battle to the death will prove it. If the master should be struck down, the apprentice becomes the master, and the order continues. Together, the two may attract legions of minions, but true power will remain concentrated. Always two, a master and an apprentice. Do you see what I mean? The potential that we're missing out on? On the one hand, magic can just as easily be a mechanistic conduit for power as a primal expression of metaphysical philosophy. Or it can be both. Which, in my view, is the way it was always meant to be employed, and it is the form that I personally prefer, hence my ardent defense of midichlorians. And before anyone says it in the comments, Yes, this was just an excuse for me to talk about the expanded universe. I'm a lifelong Star Wars fanboy. What do you want from me? But anyway, that's enough of my prattle for the now. I realize I'm far from the first or only person to opine on this subject, and I know my takes on it are hardly what you would consider original. But as I've wanted to start a conversation like this for some time now, and that is one of the main mission objectives of this channel, I figured I can bend my first channel rule just that far, just this once. So, as always, let me know what you think down below. And of course, all my links will be in the usual spot too. And until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and may the gods watch over your battles, friend. Bogut Ark Prusa.